This video was made in sponsorship with InnoCaption, phone calls made easy and accessible for the deaf and hard of hearing community. If you're based in the States and are deaf or hard of hearing, check out InnoCaption to make your phone calls made easier and more accessible. Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining me on an episode of Hear Me Out. How are you today?
Thank you, April, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Hey, I'd love to start out with the question, what is your connection to hearing loss?
So I was born profoundly deaf. I rely on hearing aid to communicate. So my experience growing up working in healthcare and especially with hearing loss has shaped, my personal journey and professional journey as well.
That's awesome. Okay, well, that's fascinating that I love hearing the background of people's hearing loss connection because everyone is so unique with their journey, and I really appreciate you sharing that. So thank you so much. And I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about your online presence because you are an incredible advocate in the healthcare space, like you just mentioned. And I'm just curious because not everyone, sets like is an advocate or sets out to be so vocal online. And I'm just curious what sparked that in you.
I at first was kind of about raising awareness about hearing loss, and then over time I was starting to realize that there need to be more of us in the healthcare industry because of the lack of access to care, and it became like much bigger than that. I needed to start breaking down more barriers. Uh, you know, keep pushing for more accessibility, not just in healthcare, but also in educational settings, whether, it's in school or going to a conference or, it's just really important because, there are deaf patients out there that don't come to the dentist, they don't go to get their checkup because, there's a barrier.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to address that and hopefully change the course for all of us.
That's amazing. And I think that you hit like the nail on the head there. That is so true. It is a big barrier, especially in the health industry, especially with masks and people not willing to accommodate. I find that like a really sticky topic. Like people just don't want to accommodate, even though you presented them with the resources or the tools. And I find that really frustrating. But I mean, in dental, you guys have to wear masks, right? So how does that like work in your setting?
So it's it's all about finding the right office that will work with you. It's a very tricky area. Like you have to find somebody that's willing to work with you. The team has to be on board with, how you communicate and how you might need the mask removed to lift read. There are also like steps that you just have to go through, and it's really about just finding the right team
It's true.
to help you out.
That is a very good point. Yeah, once you find the people, your people, it makes it a lot easier. Do you find that there's one particular area that's the hardest part about advocating within the dental industry?
This has happened recently. It's honestly really hard to have to repeat yourself and constantly speak up
Right.
when you know that accommodations are necessary, but you don't want to be worried about being seen as difficult. Um, so it's kind of trying to find like the balance of educating others, but also being taken seriously as a professional. Um, it's just really exhausting, and but it's also super, super important in this area.
Yeah, that's a fine line there, right? Like it's one point it's like really frustrating and exhausting, but the other side of it's like, but I have to do this in order to get better communication. But I find it really funny because a lot of the times the accommodations we ask for benefits everyone, regardless of hearing loss or not, because as a whole, we need to become better at communicating. And for whatever reason, people don't see that. They don't see that society lately is very poor at communicating. And I don't know if we just trigger them in some way when we're asking to speak up or, you know, not mumble or
Mhm.
whatever. And it just seems like it triggers people.
Yeah, not only just like, communicating, but like also acting, just the simple things like having captions,
Yeah.
on whether that an event or acting for an interpreter, and they will try to save the money and uh, ask you if this is okay, like another option, whereas that, this is what you need, and this is, that it's also gonna benefit everybody else, hearing or not, you know what I mean? And it's just very tricky. Like you just kind of like get fed up and you just kind of like revert back to your own ways of how you figure it out. Using your own app to find out what they're saying, that clinic lives and all of that, realize that you spent the money trying to go to this event and they're not trying to help you out in a way. So it's just kind of frustrating.
Yeah. That's yeah, that's not kind of them either. Like it's like you want this to be a successful event. You want people to hear what you're presenting because you spent all this money to put it on.
Yeah.
And I like the point you brought up about captions because most apps these days have the very least auto captions, most of them. And so it's as simple as just turning them on. And even that sometimes people don't even want to do, which is just wild to me. I'm not sure the disconnect there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I do want to dive into your Myo project because this is really exciting.
Okay.
And I hope I pronounce it properly, but it's myofunctional therapist. You're a myofunctional therapist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is that?
So myofunctional therapy helps people reclaim like the muscles of the faces, swallowing, sleep, you know, better airways for healthier breathing and overall oral function. So I kind of shifted into this area because I was seeing so much issues. Patients were complaining about TMJ, they were complaining about sleep struggles, or they were even having orthodontic relapse.
Okay.
And it all ties back into a dysfunctional habit. So it allows me to work preventively, but also help people transform, the way of oral health in ways that traditional dentistry can't.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not because I when I saw your new post about it, I was like, wow, this is fascinating. I'm not familiar with it, but that is a very interesting connection that I mean, my dentist has never presented to me, even though I'm pretty sure I do have TMJ. But it's very like I love the way that social media has its positives with connecting people to these new topics and educating people because they're not necessarily being taught from their healthcare professionals. So that's really wonderful. I really
Thank
admire
you.
that you're doing that. And how can people find out about your practice? Where are you located? Do you have online resources?
So you can connect with me through the Maya process either on my website www.themayaprocess.com, or I'm also on social media. I'm all over. I've had people reach out to me that way. I I do work locally, but I also see clients virtually, so I'm happy to help out across the nation and provide more resources and collaborate with other team members to provide better team approach to helping the person thrive. So yeah, I'm just very happy to be doing that, and I love it.
That's amazing. I love when you can find like your passion through something else. Like while it's connected to the dental industry, it's just amazing when paths change, but it like turns out for the
Yeah,
best. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Everything always seems to happen for a reason, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. And I'm curious if you have any advice for, young, hard of hearing or deaf youth who want to go into the healthcare industry, but are scared of how maybe they'll be treated or how to advocate, or are there some tools that you use daily that are like, if you have these in your toolkit, it'll help. It won't make it perfect because we know nothing's perfect, but it'll help.
Yeah, nothing definitely perfect, but you always have to remember to continue to advocate. If there's a barrier that's like preventing you from, you know, moving on, then you should use that barrier to, push through. Just break it down, keep moving, keep speaking up for yourself. I've always been a very shy person myself, so I kind of use my shyness and kind of like you have to like break out of your shell and be true to yourself. And that's the only way that you'll be able to get through what you need to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good point. And I find too with advocating for your needs, the more you do it, it slowly gets easier because you found your elevator pitch almost to share what you need. Getting over that first, like, this is what I need,
Yeah.
it tends to ripple effect and get a little bit easier each time.
Yes. Yes. The claim what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah,
It's always something that I've related to because like you just have to like push through it and just like overcome that first step, and then you'll be able to get to where you need to be.
that's such a good point. Yeah. And I find, yeah, like with the advocating, it literally, nothing's going to come out of it other than maybe them saying no. Like
Yes.
that's probably the only negative I could see is them just like not
Yes.
being good, nice about it. But maybe someone will overhear and they'll be like, oh, I didn't know that. I can help. Like I find when I
Mhm.
advocate for myself, I end up helping more people because I've educated that person on some level of like, hey, this is what you can do. And I find that too is a lack of awareness. Like you said, like you started originally to spread awareness, and there's so many people that have no clue about
Mhm.
accommodations because they've never had to think about it, right?
Yes.
It's
Um,
it's fascinating.
yeah, you definitely have to start little and keep
Yeah.
spreading. Even
Do
if
you
it feels so tiring to do so, obviously you want to take that break, and but yeah.
absolutely. Do you find that when you were in school, accommodations were met a bit easier than when you like graduated to the workplace, or was it kind of similar roadblocks that you came across?
So when I was in school, I first went to a deaf school and then
Okay.
I eventually mainstreamed, but I was also the only deaf student in a public school system
Oh,
growing.
okay.
So I didn't know anybody else that was deaf. And I think in a way, because back then I was born in 1986. The
Okay.
Americans with Disabilities Act didn't come along until 1990, because I was just the very, very tip of the iceberg. So people are still figuring out accessibility and accommodations then. Um, but when I got to college, things started getting a little bit easier, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done with accommodations, not just in a school setting, but like in workplace as well.
Yeah. Do you find that there would be, other than captions, like one or two other accommodations that you find would improve settings? Because I know you mentioned at events, I saw one of your posts about like the speaker, like there was just such a disconnect between the presentation. Are there other accommodations to people who are listening that like, hey, you should really implement this. It's not that hard. it's a great start.
Yeah, I mean, it would be awesome to include captions on every, presentation that they're presenting. And
Right.
but like if we're in an in-person event, it would be awesome to have an interpreter there, without having to ask for an interpreter. Without having to ask for any type of accommodation, it should be across the board, standard.
Right.
Because obviously everybody will benefit from it.
That's true. It's very true. And I think too, like you said, if it was across the board, more organizations and places would realize, okay, this is the bar that's being set. Like this is what needs to be met every time instead of just podium with a microphone.
Yes.
Like these are the steps to accommodate majority of people. Because again, my accommodations are likely different than your accommodations, but there's probably some similarities across the board that would
Mm-hmm.
help. That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any advice for anyone going into the healthcare industry um, that you wish you knew when you started out?
Yeah, I would definitely network with other deaf-for-hearing professionals. There's a Facebook page, I think it's called American Medical Professional or something. I would definitely join that because everybody's always asking how they can help themselves in the workforce. And especially in the educational setting. So definitely find a mentor to help out. This is also where I that got early funding, because I do have a nonprofit that provides scholarships, um, but also community resources and any type of mentorship. Like if I come across another different healthcare professional that wants to do there, they're always asking how can they achieve what they need to do. And, I would try to connect them, I would answer their questions or connect them with a mentor, but it's really about like trying to connect with others and network. I feel like networking is so important, even on social media, like what we're doing now, like it's just networking and just like communicating about what we can do to help others. So yeah, definitely a big thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Networking and finding like a support system. Those are, I think, the biggest things within the hard of hearing and deaf communities is finding people that when you're talking to them, they understand. Like you could vent to a coworker, but if they don't have hearing loss, they're not necessarily going to understand on the same level. And that I'll make sure to include that support group in the caption because I'm in so many support groups and I find such comfort and um like comfort to share my story and not feel judged. Like, hey, like this is what I'm going through. Do you have suggestions? And it's kind of nice. It's really nice.
Yeah. And other people have been in this situation, so they know how to help others. So it's really important to connect.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's wonderful. Well, I'm so thrilled that you came on today and shared your story and shared some really great tips and advice for people within the healthcare industry, but also just in general, because I think there's so many ways that society can improve on. But I'm
Yeah.
really grateful you came on today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun. So,
Okay. Amazing. Well, I'll make sure to include your website and your nonprofit below so people could connect with you because again, like we just saying, networking is really important. So thanks so much.
thank you so much.